The use of blackmail has been a standard part of American politics for a long time. This is a murder machine. This is not a state of law. Israel doesn't want a ceasefire. It wants to kill as many Palestinians as it can or ethnically cleanse them.
Jeffrey Sachs just exposed Israel's method for blackmailing U.S. politicians and the U.S. government in general, especially as it pertains to Middle East foreign policy and Gaza. He gets into some of the historical uses of blackmail, how Epstein figures into this, and why it makes U.S. politicians turn a blind eye to Israel's assassination of foreign officials. So let's get his take on this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Professor Sachs, what is your take on yesterday's Israeli and U.S. supported attack on Doha?
Illegal, reckless, profoundly destabilizing. Again, this is just like the attack on Iran a few weeks ago, where the attack was to kill the negotiators of ongoing negotiations. Honestly, Israel can yell Hamas all it wants. Who they tried to kill yesterday were the people negotiating the ceasefire. Israel doesn't want a ceasefire. It wants to kill as many Palestinians as it can or ethnically cleanse them or crush them one way or another. It doesn't want a ceasefire. That's why they bombed Doha, tried to kill the negotiators, and ordered their troops into Gaza City all on the same day, with hundreds of thousands of Palestinians clinging to their lives right now facing another onslaught. This is a murder machine. This is not a state of law.
Yeah, that's right, and it seems like this was yet another neighbor that Israel has attacked since October 7th. It makes it the 7th country. It's not really too usual that a country just attacks all of its neighbors militarily. You had them assassinating Yemeni officials just a few weeks ago, but don't get me wrong, Netanyahu loves the fact that there are hostages. Those 50 hostages, they're not working to try to free those hostages. He needs those hostages to serve as a propaganda tool such that he can justify to his populace moving in and occupying Gaza, even though the hostages Hamas is willing to exchange, and they were willing to exchange throughout the ceasefire that Trump arranged when he came into office. Netanyahu never wanted to abide by that, violated it almost right away, and now the remaining hostages are just there as a propaganda tool. He loves that. And the disparity, by the way, is something like 50 Hamas hostages that they have of Israel's, and Israel has something like 3,500 Palestinian hostages that aren't even charged with crimes. There's just secret evidence against them. That is what we're dealing with.
And by the way, Trump said he didn't even know about it for something that's been prepared, obviously, for many, many weeks. And it's quite possible he doesn't know about it, because it's quite possible that he's basically the figurehead, and that the Mossad and the CIA certainly knew about it.
Well, is it that he didn't know about it, or he's just looking the other way when it comes to it, just like he does the genocide in general in Gaza, just says, hey, that's an Israeli choice? The assassination of these figures in Qatar, nope, Israel did that on their own. You know, is it, him looking the other way about the fact that Israel's dragging the U.S. into a war versus Iran, which they did? I think it's more likely he's just looking the other way, controlled, in fact, by AIPAC and the Israel lobby.
But maybe they didn't happen to mention it to the president until the last moment. This is absolutely possible in our system.
How is it that you have referred to the dominance of Israel over Washington as one of blackmail?
Oh, because it's well understood that the use of blackmail has been a standard part of American politics for a long time. We don't know most of it, but we certainly know enough that Epstein, for example, was a Mossad agent and engaged in gathering compromising materials, let us say, of the American political class. And that's why the files suddenly weren't there. That's why Donald Trump's signature isn't his signature. Come on. Come on. This is so sad and so pathetic.
All right, so yeah, I think it's a plausible scenario that Epstein was running a blackmail operation on behalf of Israel. We know a lot of the circumstantial dots are connected with Israel and Israeli intelligence in mind. We've talked about that endlessly on this channel. His association with Ehud Barak, a former IDF intelligence officer, and the Prime Minister of Israel who lived with him for prolonged periods. His associations with Adnan Khashoggi and Douglas Leese, being the protege of Israel's most famous spy ever, Robert Maxwell, his association with Ari Ben-Menashe, saying that Epstein was conducting a blackmail operation. But where I'll depart from Jeff Sachs here is I don't think he was a Mossad agent, a card-carrying member of Mossad. I don't think that. I think he was a Mossad asset, an access asset, in fact, in a contractual situation of sorts, extracting prominent people's information in the United States, the prominent, very, very embarrassing information to bend them to your will. If you're Israel, that's a service that you want to pay for. And it's not unprecedented. Let's say that you don't agree with that this was a blackmail operation, this sex trafficking ring. Throw that to the wayside. There is historical precedent that this is what Israeli intelligence does. You can go back to the Shin Bet incident in 1982, Google that or look into that. That's where a U.S. consulate employee was, blackmailed over an operation where an Israeli woman was trying to extract information from him, and when he didn't give it over, they tried to place him in a compromising situation over a potential abortion dispute. Read about that. That's out there. Also, we know Netanyahu tried to say, hey, I have this audio tape of you, Bill Clinton, in your illicit affair with Monica Lewinsky, and I'm going to release it unless you free Jonathan Pollard. He tried to do that, and Pollard was an Israeli serving in the CIA, I say because he was spying. He was extracting information from the U.S. to Israel, and by the way, Israel gave that information to the Soviet Union when this happened. So there's a long track record of this. Ari Ben-Menashe was a whistleblower that blew the door open on a lot of this stuff. It's documented record.
Why is it that the Doha radar and air defenses were down when the Israelis attacked? Aren't the radar and air defenses for Doha operated by the enormous U.S. military base right outside of Doha?
Wouldn't that be nice to know how that happened? Again, Donald Trump may well have been the last to know. It's possible. I don't doubt it. But the United States government surely knew. Israel was not flying all that way without the U.S. security apparatus absolutely knowing what was happening.
Yeah, this is just like when they tried to deny that any part of the U.S. government knew about the Ukrainian strike against Russian nuclear bombers a few months ago. And, oh, hey, we had no idea. This operation was 18 months in the making or something like that, but no one had any idea. Well, that's just stupid. And, the American people, especially dissidents that question these narratives, aren't buying it whatsoever.
Period.
Would Netanyahu have said, I want your permission to do it, or we're doing it?
No, clearly he doesn't have to ask any permission because he knows that the permission will be granted. So there's nothing to ask. It's always granted by the U.S. He can give deniability to Donald Trump or he doesn't even have to ask. So no, but Mossad and the CIA coordinate. That's for sure.
Well,
we know that is true. That's how Israel got the U.S. into a war versus Iran. That's why the U.S. doesn't care about Israel trying to expand its borders into Syria and Lebanon by expanding West Bank settlements, looks the other way about the occupation of Gaza, about the assassination of Yemeni officials, about this assassination, about dragging the U.S. into a war with Iran over and over again. There's just constant deference from the United States to Israel. To say it's odd isn't even the right word, because it's such a perverted incentive structure whereby the benefactor, the U.S., that gave Israel $20 billion last year, is influenced more in the other direction, that Israel has more influence in our government. It's totally criminal.
We know that the Royal Air Force jets refueled the Israeli jets midair. If the RAF was involved, MI6 was involved. If MI6 was involved, CIA was involved. It doesn't take very much to connect these dots.
Of course. This is the most important point. We are not run as a democracy. Donald Trump may be in no more position to do much about this than we are. This is Mossad, which is a global killing machine. And by the way, all the Israeli politicians came out immediately after this and said, we will go anywhere. Our long arm reaches anywhere. They feel absolutely the impunity to murder people anywhere and to bomb people anywhere. And
we're just supposed to repeat and parrot the lines. Israel's just defending itself. After these assassinations, Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East. They were just minding their own business and all their neighbors want to attack them, but it's been constant strings of attack by them and a genocide by them. That's the truth. It's not Israel defending itself. It's Israel conducting mass murder and genocide on the bankroll of the U.S., my own criminal government.
That's why Israel is engaged in wars everywhere right now.
Here's the president yesterday. I'd like your views on whether his denial is credible. Chris, number 16.
The Israeli strike earlier today.
Well, I'm not thrilled. I'm not thrilled about it.
This sounds more like a conversation.
I don't have to do that. I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation. But I will say this: we want the hostages back, but we are not thrilled about the way that went down today.
Did he notify you in advance, Mr. President? Did Israel tell you in advance?
No. So you were caught by surprise, sir?
I'm never surprised by anything, especially when it comes to the Middle East.
How did you learn about this happening?
I'll be giving a full statement tomorrow, but I would tell you this: I was very unhappy about it, very unhappy about every aspect, and we got to get the hostages back. But I was very unhappy about the way that went down.
Unhappy about it. He's not going to threaten to withhold aid to Israel, right? For sabotaging this attempt to get the hostages back. Israel clearly doesn't want the hostages back. It wants an ethnic cleansing campaign. It wants to rid Gaza of Palestinians so that it can take it over. And the residuals will be a concentration camp. And that, if you think that's hyperbole, look at what Israel Katz has said about this. The creation of a concentration zone in the ruins where Rafah once stood. This has been blasted even by Ehud Olmert, the former prime minister of Israel, saying that this is a humanitarian disaster, and the comparisons to the Holocaust can't be denied. It is criminal.
Do you think the Qataris will ask for that $400 million jet back that they gave to the president personally?
Sad to say they won't. They won't.
Do you think they'll close down the American air base there, which is the largest in the Middle East, and tell the U.S. to go home?
No, they won't do that either. It's so sad how we're trapped in this unbelievably bizarre, opaque, Israel-led debacle after debacle. Everyone remains a bit supine in this, even Donald Trump, who was disappointed and found out at the last moment and made the call, by the way, supposedly to warn the Qatar side as the bombs were actually dropping.
Yeah, this is being disappointed, like Trump was disappointed in Israel for breaking the ceasefire with Iran at the end of the 12-day war, by the way, which that wasn't the end, it still continues. You know, no repercussions are going to happen toward Netanyahu, no threats of aid ending. You know, you don't see that many prominent U.S. politicians condemning this or denouncing this or threatening to withhold aid from Israel. Thankfully, in addition to a few good dissident leftists, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie are doing that. Not Trump, not the Trump that was given $100 million from Miriam Adelson.
Talk about a figurehead. That's a figurehead. He didn't express displeasure. How could we not have known from our ally? Of course, they knew, but maybe he should figure out why he wasn't told.
Can Marco Rubio be the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor at the same time? I don't mean legally, can he? But as a practical matter, can he? Is not the National Security Advisor someone whose office is right outside of the Oval Office with a huge staff reporting to him in the West Wing, manned by professionals who analyze intelligence and military and economic information that report to the president? Does Donald Trump have the benefit of all that anymore?
As a practical matter, I don't know whether Marco Rubio can be either Secretary of State or National Security Advisor, because
Yeah, that's exactly right. He's a twisted neocon that never saw a war he doesn't want to wage, never saw sanctions he didn't want to oppose to alienate the rest of the world, just like Trump did on India to push BRICS closer together, one of the stupidest moves and gestures in the Trump administration. But not only that, to propagandize Trump into the neocon line of supporting Israel at all costs, keeping the war going in Ukraine, which clearly discussing security guarantee proposals is doing, and the tariffs against India is doing, and not withdrawing U.S. troops or U.S. resources and intelligence and funds is doing, but also supporting Netanyahu and whatever he wants to do. So Sachs is right. He can't accomplish either job in a just world. Of course, this isn't a just world. This is a war regime government of which he is a part, and the neocon influence continues.
because I don't see any signs of any competence. So I don't know whether he's up to any of these or either of these jobs, much less both of them. We have the biggest amateur hour imaginable. By the way, when the professionals run things, it's often not better because our professional CIA class has led the US from one disaster to another. But what we have is the disasters continuing, but absolute amateur hour. So it's all improv, which we just saw in Donald Trump's own remarks. It's complete improv. Hamas was supposed to be considering a ceasefire proposal. Instead, let's kill them. That's a little improv if that's what passes for U.S. foreign policy.
Yeah, sorry, I don't believe that Israel wants the hostages back after this. Especially before this, I didn't either, but it serves an important propaganda tool. And if you're going to assassinate the diplomatic party that's supposed to arrange for their release, the worst thing you can do if you really want those hostages free is to try to kill them, to exacerbate tensions. Because as Sachs correctly says, that's not what they want. They're using blackmail over prominent politicians potentially, or it's just the Israel lobby's immense influence. I don't even think you'd have to blackmail Trump necessarily because of how closely attuned he is to the interests of Netanyahu, war criminal Netanyahu, and his corrupt government, which unfortunately has the popular support of something like 70% of Israelis. That's not something, if you're America first, you'd want to tie yourself to the hip to. Instead, it's what John Mearsheimer calls an albatross around the neck of the United States. That's what Israel is. That's what the Israeli-U.S. relationship is. And he exposed that way back in 2007 with Stephen Walt in his book, The Israel Lobby. Amazing book. It's such a timeless book, and it prophesizes how things have panned out ever since. Even before that, the Israeli lobby was influential and powerful. But the fact that that was written back there and still holds power over the dynamics in U.S. foreign policy and the Washington political establishment truly is uncanny. I really recommend that book. But Mearsheimer is right. There is a track record of Mossad using blackmail against U.S. politicians, and in tandem with that, AIPAC and the Israel lobby has immense intangible influence not only over our elected officials, but also the bureaucracy, the deep state bureaucrats that, you know, preserve the Israel first methodology and mentality, and also the U.S. president. But that's where we're at. I want to hear from you, though. Let me know down below. Is Jeffrey Sachs correct? Is Israel blackmailing U.S. politicians? Is it just the power of the Israel lobby? Is it a combination of both? Is Israel just a rogue state? What's the America First solution? Is it just to withdraw all aid, free the U.S. from AIPAC? I say amen to both those things, but I want to hear from you. Let me know down below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, also subscribe to Judge Napolitano. Please consider becoming a YouTube member by clicking the join button below, and you can help support my channel. And in return, as thanks for that, I'll not only tip my hat to you in appreciation, but I'll also give you all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.